Zlatan Ibrahimović once said that football doesn't need a new him, it needs something worse. He wasn't joking. Because while the world spent a decade arguing about Messi versus Ronaldo, a teenager from Bryn, Norway, was quietly becoming the most terrifying thing European football had ever produced. Not skillful, not elegant, not even particularly likable, just inevitable. And Zlatan saw it before any of us did. The year is 2019, Red Bull Salzburg. A 19-year-old with the frame of a heavyweight boxer and the movement of a sprinter steps onto a Champions League stage for the first time and scores a hat-trick against Genk. Not a fluky hat-trick, a cold, mechanical, almost inhuman hat-trick. He doesn't celebrate like a teenager. He doesn't even smile properly. He just points, like he expected it. That should have been the warning. Erling Haaland didn't arrive in football, he landed. People forget how early the belief was there. Alfie Haaland, his father, was a professional, played for Manchester City, had his career ended by Roy Keane in one of the most infamous tackles in Premier League history. Erling grew up with that story, grew up understanding that football gives and football takes, that the sport owes nobody anything. So he decided he would take everything first. At Molde, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the coaching staff noticed something unusual. Not his pace, not his strength, his obsession. He would stay after training until the floodlights were switched off. He tracked his sleep. He optimized his diet so aggressively that he once publicly admitted he wore blue light blocking glasses at dinner to protect his sleep cycle. That's not dedication. That's a different species. Then came the rapid rise. And it came fast. 9 Champions League goals in his first 6 games for Salzburg. 9. A record. He became the first teenager in Champions League history to score in 5 consecutive appearances. Liverpool, Napoli, Genk. It didn't matter who stood in his way. The scoreboard always told the same story. Borussia Dortmund paid €20 million in January 2020. Within 3 days of arriving, he scored twice as a substitute against Augsburg. His debut, off the bench, 60 minutes on the pitch, 2 goals. He ended his first half-season at Dortmund with 13 goals in 14 appearances. Then he did it again the following season, and the season after that. By the time Manchester City signed him in 2022 for what felt like a bargain at €60 million, the football world had a question it had never genuinely needed to ask before. Not about potential, not about ceiling, about just how far this could actually go. But this is where the story gets complicated. Because the question everyone should have been asking wasn't about Haaland's goals. It was about what happens when a weapon this powerful starts to believe it needs no one else. Ibrahimovic had spoken about Haaland in almost reverent terms. But if you listened carefully, buried beneath the praise was something else. A caution. Zlatan, who spent his career being the most dominant personality in every dressing room he entered, understood something about men built like Haaland. He said in a 2021 interview that Haaland had everything to be the best in the world if he stays hungry. That word carried weight from a man who had watched his own ego become both his greatest weapon and his biggest obstacle. The 2022-23 season looked on the surface like complete vindication. 36 Premier League goals, a record. City won the treble. Haaland was unstoppable. He won the Golden Boot, the Champions League, the Premier League title. The numbers were historic. The highlights were terrifying. And yet, in the Champions League semi-final second leg against Real Madrid, something flickered. City dominated possession. Haaland touched the ball 22 times. He looked isolated, frustrated, almost removed from the game at points. Bernardo Silva was City's heartbeat. Kevin De Bruyne was their brain. Haaland was their weapon. But a weapon only works if it's pointed correctly. He still got his winner's medal. The system covered for him. Pep Guardiola's genius absorbed everything. But the cracks were forming in the story. The 2023-24 season is where perception shifted. City's form collapsed. Haaland scored 27 league goals, still elite by any measure, but the conversations changed. Words like selfish started appearing. Former teammates whispered about a player who had stopped pressing from the front. A player whose movement in big games had become predictable. Jose Mourinho, never a man to waste an opportunity, said publicly that any team can plan for Haaland because he only wants the ball in one place. That's a damning line, because it's true. Compare it to what was said about Ibrahimovic at his peak at Barcelona under Pep Guardiola. Zlatan famously clashed with the manager. He felt marginalized. He felt the system reduced him. He left after one season, called Guardiola a coward in his autobiography, and spent years arguing the point publicly. The problem wasn't Guardiola. The problem was that Ibrahimovic had started believing the system existed to serve him, rather than the other way around. And now, watching Haaland through the lens of 2024 and 2025, you can see the same shadow forming. The 2024-25 season confirmed it. City finished third in the Premier League, their worst season in a decade. Haaland scored goals. He always scores goals, but the team's identity had fractured. Without De Bruyne at full fitness, without Rodri before his return from injury, Haaland's limitations became architectural problems. He doesn't link play. He doesn't press with intensity. He wins individual battles, but can destabilize team shape if the former City midfielder Ilkay Gundogan, speaking on German television, said something that cut through all the noise. Erling is exceptional, but exceptional isn't always enough. You have to be willing to be ordinary sometimes, to do the unglamorous work, the pressing, the holding, the patience. The best players I've played with understood that. They accepted it. Gundogan didn't name names. He didn't need to. This is where the Ibrahimovic comparison becomes something more than a headline. Zlatan was undeniably one of the greatest forwards in football history. 11 league titles across 4 countries, goals everywhere, a career that spanned 3 decades. And yet, he never won a Champions League, never won a World Cup. The individual brilliance was historic. The collective sacrifice was often missing. Haaland is at a crossroads that Zlatan stood at and walked through the wrong door. The difference is time. Haaland is still only 24. He still has the physical tools, the instincts, the numbers. The goals haven't dried up. But the game is beginning to demand more than goals. It's beginning to demand leadership, adaptability, the willingness to become less in service of something greater. Ibrahimovic never fully learned that lesson. His story is magnificent and incomplete simultaneously. Haaland's story is still being written. The final line of this story doesn't belong to Haaland yet. Because football's most brutal truth is this: talent gets you the stage. Character decides what you do with it. Ibrahimovic saw Haaland coming. He saw the power, the inevitability, the records. But he also saw, perhaps more clearly than anyone, what stands between a great footballer and a truly complete one. The goals will always be there. The question is whether the man behind them is willing to become something bigger than the player he already is. That question doesn't get answered in a highlights reel. It gets answered in the moments nobody films.